much.
We are back streaming.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Lawrence, for joining us in between your classes today. So the next new piece of business is going to be under 7 on the open agenda, 6.1, the boardwalk extension. Travis, I will ask for you to give us some background on that, please.
Sure thing. Just before I do, Josh, Brent Lamming was going to join us. Is he in the waiting room?
I just let him in seconds ago.
Okay, Beverly, Brent Lamming is going to present on this item, and I'll present on the fender replacement for the cruise ships.
Okay, fantastic.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Brent. So, Brent, Josh is, just so I'm clear, were you wanting access to your presentation to present directly?
If Josh wants to bring it up and then I can just ask him to advance the slides, that'd work great if he has access.
No problem. This is the Boardwalk Promenade project.
That's correct. Thank you, Josh. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for letting me have the opportunity to present this request today in front of the Tourism Board. To start off, Josh, if you could advance to the next slide, that'd be great. Just a brief overview on this. This was a request that we had brought forward to City Council before with support to request to bring back a very important link here in our waterfront in Sault Ste. Marie to capture right around the marina in front of Montana's right along to the waterfront. It was pulled off a number of years ago and has been missed by many citizens and tourists. We get many comments over time to see that come back into place to help serve the community and to help with tourists who like to walk right across the waterfront. It provides a seamless link to that waterfront. Right now, people are bypassing that area on the waterfront and coming in front of City Hall and then catching it back at Clerk Park. So as it states right here, it's one of the most popular features in the community and an important link here on our waterfront. The new structure, as it states there on the slide, will be fully accessible. That was one of the concerns with with the older link that was there prior. So it'd be going right from the north part there you see on the red line all the way down to the south, and it would be easily accessible right from ground level. And another couple of advantages of this right here would be to serve a lot of the individuals that are visiting the city from the local hotels that are nearby, and plus the cruise ships. Over this last season, we had 28 cruise ships that docked at this facility. And in a normal year, we typically have 60,000 visitors to the Roberta Bondar Pavilion for events throughout the summer, including Canada Day. And then we had 2,000 visitors on an average typically that come through the marina as well. Next slide, Josh. The project was originally estimated with pre-COVID numbers at 700,000. Unfortunately, we had some impacts with COVID and it came back, the bid that was received was roughly at 1.4 million. And with respect to this submission right here, we did get approval from FedNor in the amount of $500,000, and the city contribution to cover that 700,000 was $200,000. As the bid did came in over anticipated figure, the council did not award the project, and that money of $200,000 was rediverted over to assist with the Mill Market project. Recently, we reached out to FedNor to see if it was still available to utilize the $500,000 in funding as part of the project. They did confirm that was the case, so we could still go forward and retender in the spring of 2023. Josh, next slide, please. As I said, the extension is available till March 31st, 2023. We've been working through with the existing supplier on a value management exercise, and they believe that they do have a solution that will bring us below the $1 million threshold, still being fully accessible in the location that was indicated in the prior slides. So right at this point, we'll be having to finalize our specification drawings, and we don't want to lose the $500,000. It's very critical that we receive this funding, and we want to be able to continue to move forward with utilizing that funding. Josh, next slide. Thank you. So there is a path to retain the funding, as stated earlier, and at this point, city staff are coming to the board here asking for support on the project. We feel it's a very important project. It's been one that's been asked about on numerous occasions from members of the community and the city. We'd like to go back with a suggestion and a request to City Council of utilizing the $500,000 in funding. We're seeking $200,000 in contribution from tourism, and we'd be asking for an additional $300,000 to cover the cost of the project, which would total the $1 million in funding required. Next slide. And I believe this brings it to the end, and I've kind of asked what the ask is and the importance of the project here for the boardwalk in general, and looking for support from the tourism board, and happy to try to answer any questions you may have of me today. Thank you for the time.
Great. Thank you very much, Brent. I will turn it over to the board for questions to Brent. And if there's anyone at City Hall there, I can't see. Joe?
Brent, with all due respect, if this project was so important to the city of Sault Ste. Marie, why did they divert the money that they had allocated to go elsewhere, and now you're coming to tourism?
That's a good question. I believe that's Joe. I can't see in the camera. I think it was Joe that asked the question.
I'm
but
sorry. I know I'm short, so
yeah, no. no. It's hard to see through the camera. So, okay, I recognize the voice. So appreciate that question. It's a good question, Joe. And at the time, we thought that the funding wouldn't be. We weren't sure of this project. So it was determined to move the money to the Plaza project. We did get reconfirmed that the funding would still be available to the March 31st date. So we still wanted to see if we could utilize this funding going forward. And that's why we're requesting this here, and also asking for the request of city funding as well.
Follow-up question, Brent.
Yes.
There's two aspects to the MAT funds. One is for the development of infrastructure for tourism, and the other is for events, programming, marketing, etc. Have you had any conversation or consideration to use the development fund rather than the general funds that we have in tourism? Does it matter to you?
I think maybe Travis might be best to answer that question. If Travis, you can provide some insight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Beverly, this is an error on Alana and I's. Well, I'll take it on my side. We intended to show the updated MAT numbers at the beginning of the meeting. Sorry, not the MAT numbers, but the TDF. So as of right now, sitting in the TDF, once we factor in all the commitments to date, including the 125 for the cruise ships, we're sitting at $158,610 currently available in the TDF.
That's before we ask.
That's prior to the request from Hogan's. So as of right now, we wouldn't have sufficient funds to.
But you've got 2023 funds coming in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So some time ago, I was rather hesitant getting into what I consider to be money that's supposed to be used for events and drawing people here, etc. To me, this is a infrastructure program, an infrastructure construction program that the municipality had originally budgeted out of their funds, and now they're in a squeeze, and now they need the money. And I'm not saying we shouldn't help. Don't misunderstand me. I understand we don't want to lose the 500,000, but I be quite honest with you. You think that the city would approve? Would you recommend that to the city to use the development funds rather than the current budget money that we have for tourism? And you're here because the city doesn't have enough money to deal with this, that they wanted to deal with it, right? They took it off their budget because they don't have the money.
You were coming to tourism today to get that request, that money. Yes.
Yeah. So, the priority of the city's spending has changed. And so you need our tourism money to do this development. And I'm saying, I'd like to give you some money, but you're not gonna have the money needing that money until 2023. And so why not use the development funds that you're gonna have for the city to do the deal?
I think if you're asking me the question, or Travis, if you want me, do you want me to take it, Travis? Or
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I'll try it. I'll do my best, Joe.
Thank you.
Uh,
I'm trying to help you.
yeah, I mean, I 100%. So I think there's two things. One, Brent's running into a budgeting issue because he needs a commitment from council this year to allocate hopefully 300,000. Depending on the dollar value that Brent would seek from the TDF. I mean, certainly it's up to the board to recommend it, but that could deplete our TDF very early in 2023. And we do know that we've got more. I mean,
It would deplete the funding for festivals, all the festivals and events.
yeah. So I think it's you know, as a looking at what was available in the balance sheet of the corporation and looking at where money might be available without completely depleting the TDF. The thought was, you know, approach the board for the general fund.
Brent, can I ask?
The next, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, no, you go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna ask, only the red area was what is proposed in this approximately $1 million. What about the portion in front? Because along in front in Montana's hasn't been obviously utilized for some time now. So is there a thought process along that part as well with the connection, or are we just talking about the red zone?
Yeah, the request today is for the red zone. There are some other discussions being held, and Travis may have some more insight in that as well with our planning department with respect to the continued link all the way across in front of City Hall and up the old seawall to connect as well. So there is discussions being held on that. And Travis, I'm not sure if you want to speak to that, or I could.
Yeah, I can at a very high level just indicate that the engineering department is currently working on a grant application to improve the boardwalk from Montana's all the way around City Hall back to Clerk Park. So I think it is being considered, trying to update the whole area. And you know, I know the boardwalk, you know, obviously with the cruise ship, the Miss Marie, I think has been a huge driver for visitation down there. I mean, it is a significant tourism asset. You know, that we're seeing its use continue to grow.
Yeah, with the continued activation of things like beaver tails that are coming there, the Miss Marie, we're seeing continued constant traffic right across the Bondar. If you go there any night during the summer, you see continual traffic. It's really busy throughout the summer months.
Surprises me that the city didn't spend all the money that was needed. I'm just flabbergasted, quite frankly. Travis, we could worry about down the road with the other projects, use development money for this. I mean, at the end of the day, what it works out to is basically a $500,000, $450,000 contribution to the plaza. No, really, this is a back way of taking in more money for the plaza. Doesn't make any sense. So I was hesitant to vote in favor of the 250,000 for the plaza, but now another 200,000. The plaza's putting us broke.
Yeah, I guess what's the thought process of saying, like, you know, we're at risk of losing 500 grand from FedNor, but we're going to take the money that we have budgeted for the boardwalk extension, knowing that you're putting the other money at risk? It just seems like the city's looking for the tourism general fund to be their piggy bank when they make these types of decisions.
I think I can answer that if I may, Beverly.
Yeah, absolutely, Brent.
Because originally, the budget of this project was $700,000, which I said at the onset of my presentation, it was 700, right? So that was what was anticipated. A lot of factors came in, COVID being one of them with costs in general, and the project came in at 1.4 roughly. So that wasn't anticipated to be the cost at that time. So that's how the increase happened.
Brent, just to interject, I think I think what Don and Joe are getting at is reallocating the 200,000 that the city had set aside for the project to the plaza. And if I recall correctly, maybe you can touch on this, was the original assumption that FedNor, the termination date of the available funds was going to be much quicker than what we've since found out.
Yeah, we have until March 31st now confirm that this is the date that we have until use the funds. And that's why if this is supported here, and then if it is supported at council as well, that we would tender as soon as possible in the new year.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think originally there was some confusion with FedNor thinking that the money had to be spent by, was it October or something?
Yeah, it was sometime this fall. Travis, you're correct.
Joe, I understand where you're coming from, but I guess I'll play the devil's advocate. If the budget was originally 700, and this is a 2-point question. So we are only asking in some fashion to top up from the 700 to the million, actually less than that. So I think that's really what how perhaps the ask should have been done. And the second part of that question is if the original budget proposal came in at $1.4 million, what happens if you put this back out to tender and you're saying it's going to be $1 million? What happens if it's $1.2 million? Like, where's the surplus coming from?
Yeah, good question, Richard. Yeah, that's what we're working with. The proponent that we're working with right now has given us some indication that wouldn't be the case, and they're pretty confident that this would be under $1 million, the solution that they're looking at.
And just for clarification, Brent, this is still contingent on it going back to city council and them still finding the other 300,000 and approving it as well, right?
That is correct. Yes.
And that's going to the new council, or it's going to return to this council?
That would have to go to the new council. So I believe the next council that we can do business on would be November 21st.
Do we have other questions for Brent here from the board? Kelly?
I guess wouldn't they have to go through the budget deliberations first before they can go in? Because presumably they spent the money for this budget year.
Yeah, you are correct. Thanks for making that point. It would be, we still have to bring, it's still an item on for the 2023 budget deliberations, which would take place in February of next year. So we would have that. And so it's still subject to council approval on that date. But I believe Travis may provide an update to the board. That would be a route if it was something the board wishes to do.
Like what I'm getting at is, I guess, like, we can say today, yeah, I'm gonna give you the 200 grand. Come back in November, the city says, yeah, we're gonna give you the 300 grand, but that still has to go through budget deliberations. So realistically, to meet the deadline of March 31st is not achievable without knowing that you have the money in hand, because everything's contingent on other things. Because if the city can't commit money in this budget year for that project, because they've spent all their money, they can't, like the new council, and I could be wrong here.
Yeah.
It's just my simple understanding of municipal politics, right? I mean, on the 21st, it could be a meaningless motion before council because it would still have to go through budget deliberations in order to say, yes, you could have the money.
If I may answer, Beverly, I see you're muted there. We still would have to go through. We could still bring things forward on the 21st to go if the tourism did have a amount of money they wanted to bring forward as a recommendation, and then we could review that with council and sources of funding with internal finance here.
Just so I understand that, you could go back to council now and see if they have money elsewhere so you don't lose this grant? Is that what you're saying?
That would be the process. If tourism is willing to support amount of money here today, we would go back and revisit with their finance and then would recommend something forward to council.
Well, maybe you should go that. Maybe you should go back to council, have them reconsider their denial. I mean, at the end of the day, the financing of these projects should be really well thought of by the municipality as to how they spend their money. And if there's a shortfall, they can't go picking in the pockets of other sources that weren't really intended for that particular infrastructure work. And in principle, I have an issue with that, right? I mean, you know, we're not here to bail out the city on certain projects as they come along. And I really think it's unfortunate, but the city of Sault Ste. Marie made the decision to do the work. They should be budgeting that work like everybody else. If they don't have the funds for that, then you don't plan that stuff. It's exactly the same thing that happened with your garage, the bus garage. And so, you know, it's unfortunate. I would vote against this. So.
I guess just to my response is to reiterate, the project was budgeted at $700,000 originally, and the funding was there. So it unfortunately came in over that budget.
Joe, I'm not sure I totally agree with you on your analysis, and I'll tell you, and maybe I'm too, how would I say this? I've looked at what happens in the Keys, and I think I've brought forward what happens in the Florida Keys and what happens with their municipal accommodation tax. Now, mind you, if we had their kind of budget, I suppose it would be a little different. But anyways, they do fund capital projects by the various municipalities that are tourism related. So they are using some of their MAT funds to support tourist capital funds, whether it's at the municipal level or it's at, for capital, it has to be at the municipal level or at not-for-profit. So, or for obviously not-for-profit entities. So they do that. And I kind of disagree with you on the thought process. If this is,
that, Richard, with all due respect, you're misunderstanding. We have two aspects to the MAT funds. We have the development fund, and we have the additional funds that we spend for programs, attractions, et cetera, et cetera. The development fund is intended for infrastructure work. That's what that's intended for. We haven't really done it that way for a variety of reasons. But the development fund, what the city controls of that development fund is intended for infrastructure programs. And I'm saying that money is there. Let the city use the development fund. The last time you and I had the same debate is when we allocated the funds for the plaza. We didn't use the development fund, we used the general funds. And you and I had a debate with respect to that, and you won out on that. That's fine. So we used money for the plaza from that source of funds. I just don't think that that's intended that way.
I also add to Joe's thought, like if the intention is to use the money for infrastructure project, then we should be in the process, like we should be included in the process of the capital development for that project, not as an afterthought, say, crap, we ran out of money, let's go knocking on the door. Right, and I think that's what seems to be happening here, at least from my point of view. And yeah, like, you know, it's an important part of the waterfront. I agree. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I just think that, like, you know, if we're taking away money that's intended for marketing, right, we got to come up with that money somewhere else. So what do? We go back to the city and say, hey, now you guys got to give us some money. How's that going to work?
my only comment on that though, Don, is look at our budget. we've allocated, I don't know, $320,000 for marketing. So that is still there. We allocated $260,000 for general development. We did spend this particular past year $200,000 of that, and that was on and that was on our funds, and that was on the lock tours. So we are supporting capital projects. Sorry, Joe, we are out of our general fund. We are supporting capital projects. Question is whether we want to support more. But anyways, I'm not, how would I say this? I think out of our general fund, we do have the availability to support capital projects. Whether this is one or not, it's a different story, but we are doing it.
And just for clarification, we are talking about this 200,000 from the general development fund, not from our TDF.
That's correct.
Kelly, had you popped on there earlier? You had a comment or a question to make?
Yeah, it's just a simple, it's nothing to do with the financials, but just in all my time in Sault Ste. Marie and within tourism, I've never had anyone ask about being able to access that section of the boardwalk or missing that section of the boardwalk. And I guess I just don't have a good understanding of what value it brings. So if someone can just enlighten me there.
Sure, I'll start if that's okay, Beverly, and if anyone wants to jump in just from general. So yeah, it was originally put in place as part of the hub trail when this was established, and unfortunately there was some accessibility concerns, and so it had to be removed. So that it's been on the radar for some time as a capital project of the city to get added back. We do get inquiries quite often of how people miss that part of the trail and they wish it was fully accessible. And it's a heavily used area of our beautiful waterfront here in Sault Ste. Marie from both people that are local and from visitors. We get comments from tourists quite often of how beautiful our waterfront is. So I think it would be an added feature. We have a beautiful marina that just got redone right there in the neighborhood of $900,000. So we have good use there. And the Bonder 10, as I stated, we have upwards of 60,000 people that attend that whole waterfront and events in general. We've had events in years gone by, especially pre-COVID, approaching 90 to 100 events right there. So it's an active space. A lot of the hotels that are nearby, people will walk from those hotels down here. And it's a gem here in the city, the waterfront. So I think
for sure.
connecting
I'm not disputing that. I guess maybe it's my misunderstanding of the space, like how I envision it. You can walk into that space, but you can't continue. You have to come back out. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Before, when it was connected, you could come right on the north side of the Bonder Marina all the way to the south, right in front of Montana's, right in front of the Civic Center, and then right up the other side, connecting to Clerk Park prior. And then when that was removed, that piece of the hub trail was eliminated to access that way.
So moving forward with this project, it still has an end to it. You could not go beyond that at this time.
Yeah, if you added this piece back, you would have full connectivity along the waterfront there. So you would have that connectivity added back. And then that, as Travis alluded to, our engineering department's looking at redeveloping some of the space right around the Civic Center. So that would connect that whole space nicely like it was a number of years ago.
Okay, I think personally, I would like some more time with this topic. I'm going to go visit that area. I just got to get a better sense for what it is we're looking at.
If you're coming from the south parking lot, you can access kind of where it was before. So and you can come right up. It is fenced off a bit on where the Civic Center is, but there is a green space there south of the south parking lot here at the Civic Center where you can go right to the waterfront to get a perspective.
Thank you.
I have a thought too, like, for example, the rush right now is the fear of losing this $500,000 chunk of money from FedNor. Couldn't we have a better plan that goes through budget deliberations and go back to FedNor when we have a set price rather than an estimated price, so we don't find ourselves in this quandary. Push the project back, sure, but I think if there's the possibility to reapply for the FedNor grant, even if we miss the deadline, I would be of the opinion that I'd rather see a better plan than a rush plan.
There's one aspect to this matter that gives me great concern, Brent, and Travis, and Alana. Within the municipal operation, this program and this idea comes from engineering, it comes from your office and so on. And it puts us board members in an adversarial position to a certain degree because we have to ask questions as to the validity of this program after the fact. And it would be unfair for Travis or anyone within municipal offices to say anything in contravention or contrary to what you're presenting, especially if it comes from superiors or people who are, these people report to directly or indirectly. So this whole system of coming to us after the fact or funding of a program that has been approved by someone outside of us and really cannot be objectively reviewed by the tourism staff, if I could put it that way, puts us in a position where we have to ask an awful lot of questions and dig and, be critical sometimes of the proposal. So I apologize for all of the questions that are being asked because there has to be some serious evaluation here of the spending of dollars. And I'd rather spend $500,000 and do the same ads that Fernie, British Columbia is putting on the air. I like to spend the money to advertise the north with the hub trail, the bike trails, the skiing, all of the things that I see on television for Fernie. $350,000 in the marketing is very, very little, Richard. I'd rather spend $500,000. And we cut back on advertising and marketing because of COVID. But if the ski hill starts this year and all of the things that we think are going to happen, then we need that $500,000 to $600,000 in marketing. I can say that because I'm not dependent on Brent or anyone else in the administration. And so I think that we can spend that $300,000 or $200,000 increasing our winter budget for snow machines, snow trails, etc. And so I'm against this thing.
Okay. Brent, I'm assuming, or Travis, that there's a deadline on this going back to council, or are we able to defer? I mean, as Kelly said, she'd like some more time to think it over and check out the area and really put some perspective behind it. I'm kind of getting that feel from a few others as well. And
Yeah,
Joe, you've stated where you're at, but if we were to defer this, can we defer it to the October meeting?
So I'm gonna say a couple of things. So first off, Joe, I agree with you 100%. I wish we had a lot more in our budget. The piece that I want to tie, I'm going to answer your question about schedule. So the waterfront is incredibly important. The board, when we talked about our strategic objectives, downtown waterfront was one of them. Don, 100% agree with your comment about how Tourism Sault Ste. Marie is engaged on the waterfront and the design. And I think that it's worth considering a discussion with engineering and planning about doing a comprehensive waterfront design plan, essentially from here to the city owns the property, all the way up to Purvis, and looking at how we could design and hopefully build a waterfront that's even more appealing for tourists, because I think it is a major draw. And Richard, you reminded me this today that it's ranked close number two in terms of attractions on Expedia. So it's obviously a critical component. And, I think a proper design plan for everything would make a lot of sense. Now, That being said, there has been some work done here. Obviously, the federal dollars and not wanting to lose those, I think, is an important consideration. And you know, the design could be done afterwards or it could be done in concert. That's for the board to decide. As for schedule, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe October 4th is when the conversations need to start happening with respect to the allocations of funds, capital funds for projects such as this. So I think if we were to look at deferring this, presumably the city would want to come back and if possible, request a special meeting for sometime next week.
You're correct on that date of October 4th, Travis.
Okay, can I ask how the board feels about deferring this and doing a special meeting sometime next week then in order to look at resolving this? Give it some thought, or do we want to move on the resolution today? Ilya, you just.
Yeah, I definitely I see all the benefits all around. I see what Joe and Don are talking about. But yeah, I'd like to sit with that if we could.
I do, I'm relatively new to the town, and I would love to be able to take the perspectives, to take a look at what it is that we're talking about. Do we get any sense of what exactly, is it going to be just a bolstering of that area? Is it going to be just a, you know, making that area wider, or is it just going to connect, essentially just going to connect?
It essentially connect, I believe it's 8 feet wide perspective right from ground level, going from one side to the next. Yeah, I believe that's the dimension.
And what could you do with 8 feet? Like, could there be vendors? Could there be, like, what would be able to be had on that 8 foot other than just walking?
It traditionally would be an extension of the existing path that's there. It might be tight for having like a mobile retail unit on there for that type of space, but it would allow for the traffic flow from not walking, jogging, that type of typical traffic that would go.
So it's more of a, you know, kind of
Pedestrian.
engineering, like a city end, or like a flow issue.
Correct. It's to allow for pedestrians to continue the path.
I'll move that we defer this to a special date as soon as possible next week after we get more information.
You'll move on that, Joe? Do I have a seconder to defer to a special meeting next week? Don? Yeah, I think that we're all in favor of perhaps Alana, you can send out a doodle and we'll see what might work for putting together a quorum for next week. Okay, so I would say that that motion's been deferred.
Okay, thank you for your time, everyone, today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brent.
Okay, Travis, are you good for the other matter? Can I?
Yeah, no, I can handle that. And Beverly, I'll ask, I know we hit 2 o'clock. Do you want me to continue on the matter of the fender, or do we need to?
I think we better defer that one.
Okay, so Joe is asking for deferral on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that if we're not on a timeline on that one there, that
Okay.
we can push that to October, please.
Okay, so then if everybody has time, and if we can, I'd love to talk about the reallocating the revenue generated by the visitor guide towards winter marketing. I don't know if everybody has time for that one.
Yeah, does everybody have about another 10 or 15 minutes here? Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll give a brief overview. Joe, you missed this aspect when you were out, but in terms of train sales, we exceeded the 2018 targets by about 10%. So we've hit about 24,000 seats sold this year. Now, why that's relevant to this discussion is we were approached and we've been working kind of hand in glove with Watco on the marketing. And because they came to market late, we did allocate a bit more money than we had originally planned for our Q3 marketing to bolster the train, and that included some advertising into the US markets and a larger push into the GTA, which I think, given the results, bore fruit. I think we were successful in our objectives in terms of the marketing. Now, unfortunately, what we did do is we depleted about $30,000 out of our winter marketing. And what we would like to do is through the sales that we did on the visitor guide, we brought in 29,300, I believe, off the top of my head, of sales revenue. And so we would like to be able to reallocate that sales revenue, which came in under the marketing budget line item, into the winter marketing to bolster some of our winter marketing initiatives. And we'd like the board's permission to do so.
At minimum, I'm with Joe. I think that we take money out of the general fund to add to the promotions that we've already got planned.
Okay.
But I don't know if that should be an item for another. For the next meeting, but
Yeah, and that's a good point. I'm meeting again with Search Fund on Monday, and Richard, and we're going to have a talk about their marketing plans, and just things are looking really promising there. I was out in August. Things are tracking really well. We want to verify that things are still tracking well. But I think that right now, if we could get the money from the revenue, fantastic, and then we can have a broader discussion about how we potentially bolster that with some of the funds from the general development fund.
So point of clarification, Travis, have we spent any money to August 31st, I guess? Have we spent any money on winter programming or not?
We have. So out of the 70,000, we've committed 40,000 in winter marketing.
But okay, that's a commitment, but have we spent any of that 40,000?
I believe we've spent 14,000 on our city for the videos, and I'll have to get back to you on the other amount, but there has been some money spent. We collected some video content late last winter with the intent of rolling it out at the beginning of this winter.
Okay. See, that's my point on the disconnect between what Christine is giving us and our budget. We need to put those two together so that we actually do have a good sense of what we spent on spring, summer, and winter programs. So, so anyways, well, we need to work on that. So we need to get there. So I'm agreeing with your concept that just.
Travis, can I ask, where was the revenue that was just going into the general development fund, and you're asking for us to reallocate it towards the marketing piece?
Yeah, I believe it's in a revenue account.
So the way.
And that's in the amount of 29,300.
It was not budgeted. So that money that Travis is talking about wasn't in our budget that we approved or council approved. So
okay,
we only had MAT funds in there.
Okay.
So we had 763,000 and change was our budget. With the revenue that we've collected, it bumps us up to 793 roughly. So we'd like to allocate that extra 30 to marketing.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've had some fairly extensive conversations today about marketing and how we need to really be focused on that. So if there's any other questions from the board, otherwise I'll read the resolution on it here. Okay, so I'm looking for a mover and a seconder on the resolution. Be it resolved, the Tourism Sault Ste. Marie Board of Directors approve the reallocation of the visitor guide ad sale revenue in the amount of $29,300 to be reallocated to the 2022 marketing budget. Do I have a mover? Joe? Seconder? Richard? And can I call for a vote of those in favor of reallocating the funds to the marketing? And Elia? Yeah. She's muted, but we had a full.
Sorry, I had
That's
to
okay.
run to the washroom.
Okay.
I missed a bit of the conversation.
We moved on a resolution to take the revenue that we got from the visitor guide sales of 29,300 and reallocate that towards the 2022 marketing to beef that up a bit.
Perfect.
You're in favor of that?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor. Thank you. Okay. The last thing that we had was with regards to the border discussion.
Yeah, and I think Beverly, what you and I discussed, given the recent news about the potential rollback of the app, would be to kind of park that conversation for the next meeting. In the event that they don't roll back the app, then the board would be looking at expressing our opinions towards MP Sheehan.
Yeah, I certainly think that with the deadline coming up on the 30th, anything that we put together right now probably isn't going to sway them. However, if they choose not to roll back those mandates, then, you know, it's a conversation for how we move forward at that point. Does anyone else have any thoughts with regards to that?
I'm good to wait to see if they're actually gonna roll it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly sounding like it's in that direction. Richard, any thoughts?
Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. I did hear from a pretty good authority at Bridge Authority that they think it's going to be rolled back in some fashion. So
yeah,
that's what they're gearing up for anyway. So
I say
I
we
think
I say we table it and look at it if they don't. Sorry, Joe?
I don't understand the optional aspect to it. You said the optional, what the hell does that mean?
I mean, really,
Oh, I
it's
get it.
about
Oh.
ease for them checking vaccines at the border. So if they roll that back, I mean, nobody's really going to do it.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll table that and put it on the next agenda should it be a relevant piece at that time. Oh, wait, I missed circling back on Hogan's Homestead. My apologies. We got into those other discussions there and deferring things. So Hogan's did come forward with the ask for $50,000. We have a resolution on the table for that, unless anyone had any other comments or feedback before I ask for a mover or seconder on that.
Could we give maybe Joe a briefing before?
That's okay.
He wasn't here for that.
That's all right. You
If he
guys
wants
go.
to assist.
It's not fair to you. You guys deal with it. It's not fair to you people. Just for other information, I was chair of the EDC meeting next door here since 12 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, so are we good to move with do we have somebody who is moving? Oh, sorry, I guess I have to read it.
better read it.
Yeah, I better read it. Be it resolved that Tourism Sault Ste. Marie recommend a contribution up to $50,000 through the Tourism Development Fund Attractions and Product Development Stream to support Hogan's Homestead on the development of the sweetest destination, and that a report be submitted to City Council for consideration and approval. Do I have a mover for this resolution? Elia? And do I have somebody that's going to second?
I'll second it.
Kelly? And I will call for a vote for those in favor of moving this resolution.
Clarify my hand this long.
And sorry, Brad, Don, you were in favor as well?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, motion carried.
Yeah. He casts a large shadow. Travis Blair.
I just wanted to ask if there's a speaker at the table in the tourism office. I had a really hard time hearing everybody at the actual on-site meeting table.
It's fully integrated, but we can, we'll have a follow-up conversation with IT to see maybe there's an add-on that they can do.
Yeah, there were
I
definitely
can
some
always
points
hear
that we
you
missed,
being
Joe.
at the front of the room, but everybody else was really, I had to really listen.
Beverly,
Yes.
before we move on, and I know everybody's been really patient here. Alana and Josh have worked extremely hard with Bonsu on their 60th anniversary. I know we could defer the larger conversation, but I think this one was sort of a preparatory overview because Bonsu will be coming.
Give us a highlight on it, guys.
Okay. Josh, if you can put the presentation up on the screen, I'll be very cognizant of everybody's time, and I'll go through it just to kind of give you a bit of an overview. And that's all this is just to give you an update as to where we've been at with Bonsu over the last couple of months for conversation. So I'll go quickly through it. Won't get into the level of detail that we perhaps could have, but we'll be open to follow up next month. Just to quickly give you a bit of a background, Josh, if you want to go to the first slide. This is leading off of the meeting that we had last fall talking about strategic direction and what we're looking to try and grow and enhance. So Bonsu leans itself well into bullet point number 2, festivals, events, tournaments, and groups. We've identified that Bonsu is a best bet product as an opportunity to grow an existing winter carnival and reach out to them to continue those conversations to see how we might be able to assist. So in 2023, Bonsu is celebrating its 60th anniversary of the Winter Carnival. Next slide. So just a bit of Bonsu background for everybody. Bonsu was created in 1964 by Mr. Henry Bullock. It's been building year over year. It was a carnival that was built with the intent to fill a gap in the winter season for the locals, to create something fun for people to do, and to try and develop a tourism component to that. They were quite successful year over year, leading up to the last 5 years, where we've seen a bit of a change. And as I said, this year they're celebrating their 60th anniversary. The program runs for 10 days at the beginning of February every year. Next slide. So currently, just to give you some quick bullet points, COVID was not friendly to the festival events industry, as we know. It wreaked havoc on a festival that was already starting to pledge a little bit for a variety of different reasons. And currently, the Bonsu Board of Directors has identified that they have a very limited capacity to rebuild the event because of volunteer burnout, depleted funds, and a lack of sponsorship and butt sales year over year. There's a series of reasons why this is the case, but this is the current status for Bonsu right now. Their funding comes solely through button sales and corporate sponsorship. And it's organized by volunteers. There's not been a paid staff at the helm for the last 4 years. It's all been run through volunteers. With a limited capacity with these volunteers, they've been trying to stay afloat with reduced programming, and COVID certainly did not help with that, with the lack of in-person gathering year over year in the last 3 years. So they've had a reduction in their funding and their button sales. And so what we did is we approached Bonsu with an offer to try and look at the festival, look at how we could help and set some path forward for them. We've established a working committee dubbed the 60th Anniversary Task Force. We put 12 to 15 key players in place as volunteers to identify how they can help in areas relative to sponsorship, fundraising, marketing, and volunteer recruitment. So this committee met for the first time earlier last month to put a path forward for Bonsu for 2023. Next slide. So what we're looking at for the 60th anniversary of Bonsu is we're going to be announcing a new theme for this year that's going to recognize that 2023 is a year of growth and rebirth for the Winter Carnival. We're going to try and build on the nostalgia of the carnival through the generations by rekindling some past events, introducing new events, and increasing the visual identity of Bonsu, and try and set a course forward for the festival for the next 5 years that generates some revenue, refines their programming, increases their brand awareness, and increases their sponsorships and partnerships. Next slide. So for 2023 first steps, sponsorship and fundraising, the volunteer committees identified a goal of $25,000 that they're going to be seeking to the corporate side to try and generate a base of money to build into a bit of a holding account for Bonsu to be able to increase their programming. We're going to look at enhancing the programming this year to the best of our ability by adding in some new events. Conversation has started with the identification of a street hockey tournament, bringing in perhaps a significant concert or entertainment event, improving the bump slides and reintroduction of the community snow sculptures, and looking at some large-scale lighting installations to activate Bonsu in the downtown core. And a plan is underway with a goal of introducing 30 new volunteers to Bonsu to build their volunteer base year over year. Next slide. Goals moving forward, we want to create a financially sustainable winter carnival that generates revenue that will be reinvested into new and enhanced carnival offerings. We want to establish a dedicated group of volunteers that are going to commit to making this festival run. We want to create new events that are designed specifically to bring guests in from out of town. And we want to create a carnival atmosphere that increases the visual presence of Bonsu so folks know that the event's happening, including street banners, lighting, signage, that'll let people know where they can go and what is being offered. And then we're going to identify events that currently operate inside of Bonsu and assess how we can grow them into tourism events. For example, the Snow Spike Volleyball Tournament, Lantern Ski, and Passport to Unity. So the vision for the 60th anniversary for Bonsu, the carnival plans to expand the locations of program offerings into 3 different entertainment zones that will create a more visible festival in the downtown core. It'll be more inclusive and provide additional programming. So the 3 zones that we're looking at right now are the Canal District Zone, the Clerk Park Pavilion, eventually Plaza Zone, and the Attraction Zone, including the Bush Plain and Ermitinger Corner. So the Canal District will be the home base. I'll just go back for one quick second. It'll be the home base offering the bump slides and the existing programming that's currently there, indoor, outdoor, with the rink. Clerk Park being the middle connection in between that will take the existing skate trail and Clerk Park area with the goal of creating a large visual space for outdoor programming there. And then the Attraction Zone with the Bush Plain, Ermitinger Corner, and Northern Superior Tap Room to resurrect some indoor outdoor programming on those sites. Next slide. So the next steps, we've had our initial committee meeting and are looking to put a program in place for February 3rd to 12th. The application for in-kind support to the city has been submitted through Bonsu, requesting in-kind financial support from the city. Tourism staff are working to provide some strategic guidance and direction. That's been Josh and myself to try and help identify where we can work on their programming and funding. And Bonsu are working together with staff to return to the board in October with a request for support for Bonsu to look at how we can elevate some financial funding into programming, looking at lighting installations, improved marketing, and create a festival that not only supports the locals, but gives the tourists coming into town something to participate in. So that's a really fast, I apologize for the speed of my conversation, but a really quick overview of what we've been working on to try and bring Bonsu back up to where we believe it can be.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Alana. Did anyone have anything for Alana on that at the current
I
time?
congratulate everyone in tourism for working on this. I think it'd be a real shot in the arm for all of us at that time of the year. Is that a non-profit corporation, the Bonsu?
Yeah.
What's the legal structure?
They're a registered nonprofit.
And do they have the rights to the name and everything, the
Yes.
Bonsu? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
I just had one thing. I know-
Kelly?
Oh, just one second.
All sounds very exciting.
Sorry, we had two sides talking. Kelly, we didn't hear you.
I just said it all sounds very exciting, and well put together. And it just, well, from the presentation, you know, it just makes you think back to 20 years ago and everything that was going on and just all the potential this event still has. And to have that life, what's that?
Richard and I were at the first Bonsu.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, it's got a lot of potential and I'd be happy to support from a volunteer standpoint even. So yeah, looking forward to more.
And I don't know what to add. I didn't see in this presentation, maybe some people I know at this board level, we talked about having some sort of challenge competition with northern communities. I think Bonsu is the tipping off point, like the snow sculpture challenge Sudbury, some of the northern communities to bring their contingent to see the
Even
building.
races. Races, yeah. Yeah, I have never been to a Bonsu, but I used to sell marketing or sell radio packages to the Sioux from Rogers in Sudbury. So we'd have the market here, and that was part of my as an outreach.
Even get the new mayor to challenge the Sudbury and North Bay mayors at cross-country race or something.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, there could be a competitive portion of it because they didn't have anything like that in Sudbury. And it was just it was like, yeah, we should go to the Sioux to experience that.
Yeah, so with that, we're open to ideas for programming. So if you have any sort of an idea, please just send over an email and we'll look at adding it in with the Bonsu program. So open to it all.
And just on that, given the state where Bonsu is coming from and the great work that really spearheaded by Alana, and she's been a real champion here, they are going to need a lot of support this year, financially and volunteer wise. And I think what we're hoping to do is to work with them, you know, for a number of years until we're comfortable that they're sustainable. So there's been quite a bit of outreach to, you know, the private sector and, you know, looking for corporate sponsors, what have you. But I don't think it'll be any surprise that they will be back at this meeting shortly, looking for some support.
So Travis, that just brings up some point. What does this board, how would I say this, is what can we approve, which I don't think we can approve a 2023 expenditure because this board's life ends on December 31st, 2022. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. I don't know the answer to that, so.
Yeah, I know, I think you're right. So you're essentially dealing with, well, we know we have 2 more MAP payments this year, so there should be another $409,000. So the general account, I can't do the math in my head to pull out the commitments, but you know, there's a hefty chunk of change in the general account allocated this year. And then obviously there are funds that will be remaining in the TDF this year. And we know we just received an application from the art gallery that we're currently evaluating. And we know Bonsu is on the book. So as soon as we have some more information there, you know, we'll definitely have that coming to the October meeting. But anyways, very convoluted answer, but there is money that this board could allocate this year.
Good.
Awesome. Well, if that about covers it for today, I will call for an adjournment. Appreciate everyone's time today. I know we went a little bit longer, but I think there was some really good conversation here. And Alana or Travis will follow up with us with regards to that special meeting for next week. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Trevor.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll move and seconder. We need
Okay.
formal resolution.
Fair.
Okay, I'll put it down. You and